understand. They were literally copying everything we... There they are!
What the...
Hello everybody, Terronicle 545 here, and today we're going to be committing heresy and covering fake Lego. Being a Bionicle fan in 2025 means grappling with some very harsh realities. One such reality is that 99% of the very Lego parts that build up our beloved theme are dead and buried 15 feet underground. Meaning if you want to recolor Inferno's original 2011 blade piece, then, well, interesting choice, but you're unfortunately dead out of luck. Unless you take a look at the ever-expanding world of Bionicle knockoffs. This has been becoming an increasingly popular option for modern Bionicle fans to acquire some interesting recolors they otherwise never would have gotten directly from Lego. I, however, despite owning a ton of knockoff pieces, have never properly purchased a full-on knockoff set due to me being lazy and not wanting to wait that long for shipping on AliExpress. That was until I was on Amazon a little while back looking for some college items and stumbled upon a whole line of Bionicle knockoff figures from a brand called Tiallow. Not a sponsor, but there is an affiliate link in the description. They were pretty reasonably priced, so I picked up the two coolest looking ones and figured it would be fun to look over my first ever full-on Bionicle knockoff sets with y'all today. More specifically, look at all the cool pieces that come with them, because spoilers, they're the only real reason you should buy either of these. Let's get into it. I'll go into detail on all the cool part recolors in a sec, but while we're here, I figured I'd do some quick overviews of the builds themselves. Couple quick things first. Both of them are supposed to have stickers. I just didn't apply any of them so I could use the pieces more freely. Here's what those look like though. And here's the boxes, instructions, and extra pieces. A couple particularly useful pieces were included as extras, which is always fun to see. Additionally, they also both transform into some kind of Beast Wars style animal modes, which I think was honestly supposed to be the main selling point of these two, to tap into the ever lucrative Transformers market. I just don't really care, so we won't really be covering that. Here's what the transformations look like. Cool. Starting with the first mech, we have the Vermilion Bird. Editing Nolan here real quick. For some reason, this model has two names, the Fire Phoenix and the Vermilion Bird. I switch between them in this video. My bad if it gets a little confusing. For some pros, I really like the use of these recolored Inferno 1.0 blades. It's such a random piece to use this heavily, but I think it creates some really nice shaping on the hips and wings. Said wings definitely being the coolest and most eye-popping part of this whole build. I also really dig the head design. It's just got some really unique parts usage and building techniques, like the Hands of Time blade on the forehead or the Nexo Knight's visor being wedged in there for eyes. The weapon is also really cool looking, being this big blaster the hand slides into. Has some nice shaping, and it primarily being silver allows it to contrast against the rest of the build really nicely. And for my final compliment, the extra support given to the feet is cool in theory. I'll get into why it doesn't really work as well as it should in a sec, but as is, the designer definitely got pretty creative with the building techniques here, which I commend them for. This, however, leads us into the biggest, most gaping con with this entire model, the stability. For some baffling reason, on both of these mechs, the designer decided to add a pin pivot right above the knee joint. This sounds good in theory, you know, an extra point of articulation. The issue comes with the fact that all of the weight of the model is being placed on this pivot, and since it's got far less friction than the knee or ankle joints, it just leads to this happening. The super top-heavy wings and tiny feet in conjunction with that pivot cause the model to constantly want to fall over, leading to straight up maybe one of the most obnoxious experiences handling a Lego build I've ever had. To anyone who purchases this guy and wants to keep it built, I definitely recommend locking off that leg pivot, which you can thankfully just literally do with all the included pieces. For a smaller issue, I also just think the color scheme is a bit off in a few places. Red, gold, black, and trans blue seem to be the primaries, with some accents of this bright blue and trans yellow. But then you've also got like trans green in the chest, some random sprinklings of white, and trans purple ball joints. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm still ecstatic to give how much I love that color, but still. Overall, I really like the looks of this one, but the stability issues really hold the model back from being all too great in my eyes. Moving on to the second mech, we've got the White Tiger, not to be confused with White Tiger. I definitely think this one's lacking a bit visually compared to the Phoenix. The big arm claw things, Technic panels, and tiger head jutting out of the back all look a little overly clunky to me. But overall, this one's just a much more structurally sound design. We still got that same weird leg pivot, but since there's not as much weight being pushed down onto the legs, it leads to the model not wanting to topple over nearly as much. Plus, the wider feet and tail provide way better stability compared to the Phoenix. Otherwise, we've got pretty much the same head design, looks about as good here as it did on the last one. The color scheme is way more consistent, save for the random red and yellow parts. I guess the tail in the back is a little overly spindly, but that also doesn't really stand out too much from most angles. And yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about the designs of these. Like I mentioned, between the two, I definitely prefer the look of the Phoenix with its wings and shaping, but the stability issues really kill the experience of posing it, making the Tiger easily the better overall model to me. But with all that said, why don't we move on to what I'd say is the main selling point of both of these guys. For our overview here, I separated out all of the parts that are either new colors or molds that we haven't seen from LEGO. Starting with the pieces from the Phoenix, like I mentioned earlier, we've got a bunch of recolored Ferno 1.0 blades in both red and trans dark blue. They're slightly different from the official mold, being a hard plastic instead of the more malleable rubbery one. And again, this really is just such a bizarrely specific piece to think to use in this high a quantity, but hey, I'm here for it. We've got the G2 axe pieces recolored in both red and pearl gold, the 2001 Onua claws in pearl gold, which like the Ferno blades are a bit more of a brittle plastic this time around. Winning the award of probably my favorite recolors in this entire set, we got a bunch of various CCBS armor attachments. 2 of these Hero Factory ones with brackets in a pearl gold, 4 of these red Akimu shoulders, and 6 of these pearl gold Ordeal of Fire pieces. This was the first set I got out of the 2, and seeing these 3 specific pieces in the photo on Amazon was honestly the thing that initially inspired me to get it, and they're just as awesome to have in person. Another one of my favorite inclusions are these trans yellow 2007 blades. This was just such a rare color to get in construction themes, so it's awesome seeing another piece in it. We got these Technic panels in pearl gold, these ski pieces in a trans dark blue, another really random parse usage, some Hordika and Glatorian necks in black and red, some Technic cams and lift arms in various new colors, these particularly useful Technic connectors in some new metallic colors, a bunch of these Ninjago spinner blades in a medium blue, more Technic connectors in metallic shades. There were honestly a lot of these pieces included in the set, so I'll just rapid fire through a bunch of them now. We got both the 3 and 5 long axles with stoppers on the end, and the friction variety of the stud to pin connector, all of which in the very awesome recolor of black. Super useful inclusion here. Some more Technic recolors along with an entirely new mold. It's a Mixel socket to friction pin connector piece. A very interesting inclusion. I could definitely see myself achieving some kind of cool tight angles on Mechs with this. On the topic of Mixel joints, we've got some black and gold recolors of those. Always awesome to see these pieces in black because it's a much more neutral color than the grays we usually see them in. We got these pieces in black, which will be very useful for hands. And as I mentioned earlier, 11 of these ball connector pieces in trans purple, which will promptly be added to Terron as soon as I'm done recording this. We got various bar connection pieces in some interesting recolors. Standout definitely being these hard plastic trans light blue teeth. Some recolors of some pretty specific minifigure pieces. Nauticon hair, a Hands of Time blade, and these kind of rhombus shaped pieces from elves. We got an entirely new finger mold. It's kind of like an in-between from an Exoforce hand and this newer finger piece that came out a few years ago. Really excited to see how these look on some smaller scaled Mechs. And finally on the side here, we've got all of the miscellaneous system elements that saw a recolor in this set. Obviously, I don't have too much to say on these, but I did want to highlight these interesting new bracket pieces. I'm not entirely sure if this is like a Tiallow exclusive mold or if it was copied from another knockoff brand, but what's cool about it is it gets the snot studs way more flush to the side of whatever you place this on compared to the typical bracket pieces. A really interesting mold. I'm excited to experiment with it a bit on some future Mechs. Overall, we've got a fantastic selection of recolors here. The standouts to me definitely being those armor attachments, all the interesting weapon recolors, and of course those trans purple ball joints.
Snapped this piece, taking the Tiger apart for his parts overview.
Next up, we've got the white Tiger pieces. Little side note, a lot of the recolors here are actually repeats from the Phoenix, so to save us some time, I just separated all those off to the side. Starting off, we've got 4 of the larger Invasion from Below foot pieces recolored to white, a wide variety of bone and ball and socket connector pieces recolored to white. We only got white CCBS bones in a single set, so this was particularly awesome to see. Taking the award for the best recolors in this set are once again all of the awesome armor pieces. 2 of the small rectangular Star Wars attachments in trans dark blue, 2 of those Hero Factory bracket pieces in a standard blue, 2 Akimu shoulders in white, 2 Vorox armor in a medium blue, a very interesting color to see this piece in, and then finally 2 regular blue 4-long CCBS shells. A very usable selection of recolors here. We've got a surprisingly very large quantity of Technic ball connectors and updated hand pieces, primarily in white, but also with some blues thrown in there, the translucent ball connectors again being a standout. We've got some recolor Technic panels, another recolor for these Ninjago spinner blades, as well as another recolor for this 2007 sword piece, this time in pearl gold. A bunch of Technic axle and pin pieces recolored to black, which will be very useful for mocking. Then somewhat randomly, a 5-long axle in dark gray and this piece in white. More various Technic recolors, this time with some sand blue thrown in there. Some various system recolors, standout for me probably being this slope and pearl gold. While we're looking at system, we've got 2 very bizarre new molds. This piece, which is similar to a specific Mixel tooth just without the top stud, and this weird cheese slope with a stud on top of it. We got some more Mixel socket recolors, as well as some more bar connection piece recolors. Again, with these 3 bizarrely specialized pieces, the designer must have loved these for them to appear in both of these knockoffs in this wide a color variety. But with that, we'll cap things off. Overall, I would easily say there's enough cool recolors in each of these mechs to warrant buying either one of them for the parts. It's very clear that the designers of these were massive LEGO fans, because there's parts from all sorts of different themes included, even beyond just construction ones, which leads to a fantastic variety when viewing these 2 as parts packs. Both of the builds definitely leave a few things to be desired, especially those stupid legs, but there's still some immensely creative design work that went into each of them. Once again, there's an affiliate link in the description if you want to pick either of these guys up. This was a really fun experiment for me, so let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more videos like this, potentially covering more Bionicle knockoffs. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more LEGO and Bionicle content, and as always, have a wonderful rest of your day. Seriously though, of all pieces,